Alrighty, this is the Dialectic of Freedom continued. Now I want to talk about how things are a lot more different today within this social context as it pertains to freedom and how freedom is connected to consciousness. So let's say, right, this is the birth of hip hop. Let me get a different color. Well, no, I'll just do this color. Okay, let's say this is the birth of hip hop. Okay, if we understand this as a flowing, moving piece, right, hip hop was birthed here after the civil rights era. Okay, now hip hop has a lot of negative aspects to it, right, because it comes from street culture. Another thing that we notice about hip hop is, as it pertains to situated freedom, this is the capacity to exist within the realm of material security. Okay? In the realm of material security, because now they're extremely wealthy. They're the millionaires and the billionaires now. Here's where some contradictions then begin to emerge, because then politically, right, as we swing back around, what do we say about working class families that then exist beneath the prosperity of the rappers? What is hip hop going to say about that? Because this then emerges as a contradiction within the perennial unfolding of reality as a socio-historic process. Because now there are a class of working class people who need a degree of political freedom. And the rappers sit on all the wealth and all the money. So, what sort of relationship do they have to their people? Then becomes the question. Now, as it pertains to the nuanced people and consciousness, I would say that along these sort of lines, this sort of trajectory, right? That if hip hop birth happened here in artistic freedom, you have street culture. Street culture is also sided with a lot of, drugs, drug abuse, sex and violence. That is a lot of the narratives that they tell about themselves because of the socio-historic landscape that they pull from as people, right? And so that creates the archetype of what I call the concubinarios. What are the concubinarios? What happens is the concubinarios are black men see who came from the streets, and their whole narrative, right? Their narrative identity is to chase women and get money. And so you create these concubinarios. And so they stay here in this realm of negative freedom because that is where they come from. That's where their identity comes from as a rapper, right? It's from the streets. And they have the privilege of sitting in the realm of material security and not have to worry about what it's like to be black on the earth, right? To touch earth and exist in the realm of necessity. So my argument is that this is where hip hop is stuck from a consciousness perspective. Hip hop is still here, but the people have evolved and moved on as we become conscious of our lived experiences as Black people. So, as a bohemian Black person who touches earth, right, I'm boho Black. Like, I don't really identify with street culture. I didn't grow up like that, right? I also don't exist in the realm of material security, so I'm working class person. Another thing I would want to say is, as a Hispanohablante, right, as a Moreno Hispano, right, that my identity doesn't come from this socio-historic landscape. It comes from a completely different socio-historic landscape. The contradiction of being boho Black, working class, right, working class families, this sort of juxtaposition then informs my political understanding of social democracy. My understanding of social democracy. of Marxist ecology, because this class of people exist in the realm of necessity, and they've been cut off from the earth, right? And we've been forced to survive the markets as a class of wage workers, as Black people. So this thing gets really, really interesting, because now here is where we are as Moreno Hispanos. We're here. I say I am Mukimne. That's who I am. I am Mukimne as a Black person. Artistic freedom and situational freedom was always about expressivism, as Maxine Green, expressivism, as Maxine Green articulated. It was always about self-expression. And so now these two elements, the negative freedom and the artistic freedom, are now also contradictory, because you now have the rappers who are developing an identity from street culture, right? And hip hop is still here, but we as a people have moved 3 times over. And I'm here. I am Mukimne. So what they call art and what we call art is ultimately going to now juxtapose each other as a people. So these sort of contradictions that kind of reveal themselves in the circuitous nature of the cosmos cycle and the perennial unfolding of reality as a socio-historic process are now dialectically opposed, because now you have rappers who exist here and have their situational freedom in the realm of material security, but also Mukimne, right? Gender nuanced people, Mukimne, Moreno Hispanos, Bohemian Black people who touch earth and have nothing. We experience our own freedom, because freedom for us was always about expressivism. And it was always the class of people that touched earth that were the true Black people, that this idea of realness was not to go and struggle so much, and then you get your freedom, then you get your just due of being able to live like the rich. But freedom was always about expressivism, not necessarily money. And so to just talk about it from an archetypal perspective, to kind of make an archetypal comparison, this sort of freedom for me creates the archetype of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, right? Choco Fac, right? Where Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, he was a working class young boy, right? With the archetype of the shepherd boy who just touched earth. And hip hop, they developed their identity again from street culture, where poverty is ultimately then viewed differently for different types of Black people, because here poverty is associated with the gutter. Poverty is associated with struggle love. And that is not the story of all Black people. So this is what I mean when I say that Black culture is completely different today than it has ever been. And it's going to continue to amalgamate and delineate and bifurcate from itself as Black people within America begin to really explore the intricacies of their different identities and how they coalesce within the Black American experience.